The word poverty, I think, is overused in so many instances in Philippine politics. And it is a word that all of us are all too familiar of. So, good day to all correctors. Once again, this is another episode of Corrected. And our topic today is one of the most sensitive topics there is out there. And this is the primary reason why we are pushing for constitutional reforms. Poverty. What is poverty? Well, we all know what it is, the state of being poor. How would we define it in the Philippine setting? We would define somebody as poor if the person could not afford basic needs as well as other social needs for one's personal development. We can also consider somebody who can afford basic needs but cannot afford education or mortgage or transportation as poor because these other things are usually necessary for daily life. So the topic today is more focused on this idea of how to really get ourselves out of a poverty status. And this is not only talking about the Filipino as an individual, but it is also applicable to our country as a whole. So, as always, I would like for all of us to accept certain realities, facts of life, things that have been quantified and have found to be true and accepted by everyone, including academics, our luminaries, even governments around the world would accept these facts. What are these facts? First thing that we Filipinos must accept as a reality is that the Philippines is classified as a developing country. Think tanks such as the World Bank Group have made this conclusion since our country is unable to address various problems or reach different developmental milestones for its citizens. So, once again, we are in the same class as Cambodia, Laos, and other countries like Bangladesh. We are also at par with India, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia. We're still classified as a developing country. We're not developed at all. The next thing we have to accept are the statistics, the numbers in the Philippines. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, the total population of the Philippines is 117.33 million people, as per the July 2023 to 2024 estimates. This is a huge number for a very small country. I think we can all agree that the 1 million number is already huge. And if we multiply that by 100 or 117.33, that's really, really huge. The total land area in the Philippines could be enough to accommodate this number of people. However, once again, if we segue to the other agenda of Correct, which is about decentralization, there is an illusion of overpopulation because a larger number of people are condensed into metropolis areas, places that are not big enough to hold this kind of number of people. Now, according to the same agency, 22.4% or 25.24 million Filipinos are poor. Perhaps the category of being poor is, viewed subjectively different by other people. But for the Philippine Statistics Authority, this would somehow be related to people or families not being able to afford the basic needs as well as the needs for human development like healthcare, education, um, and access to the internet and all of that. So this is something we need to accept. It's a huge number. 25.24 million Filipinos live in poverty. Now, let's go further and understand the situation of poverty. So, all around the world, we can see countries getting themselves out of poverty. And all of these have been collected, information has been quantified, analyzed, and it has been understood by various think tanks, such as the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, that poverty lies in congruence with unemployment. So let's read this quote. Unemployment and underemployment lies at the core of poverty. For the poor, labor is often the only asset they can use to improve their well-being. Hence, the creation of productive employment opportunities is essential for achieving poverty reduction and sustainable economic and social development. So, the first priority of any poverty alleviation effort is job creation. So, as highlighted there in yellow, for the poor, labor is often the only asset they can use to improve their well-being. And why is this? Why? Correct. Why not give the poor some form of capital to open a small business to alleviate themselves from poverty? There's problems with that. First things off, where will the poor get capital? If the poor will get capital from the government, it means that working class or middle income class citizens would need to pay to give capital to those who are poor. Now, the second problem with this is that are the poor capable enough of taking advantage of the capital that they will be given? Will there be a guarantee that they will be able to multiply or grow the money that will be given to them in the form of small business enterprise? And the answer to that is no, because not all people have the entrepreneurial mindset. So a small business cannot be the best solution to poverty alleviation. In fact, the quickest solution to poverty alleviation is job creation or employment. Why? Because on the first few months of getting employed, the poor person is able to receive financial compensation, money, right? So if you go back to the definition of poverty, those are people who are not able to afford basic goods and services, as well as elements for human development. So if that person gets employed, they would have the purchasing power to pay for basic needs, as well as avail of education, healthcare, and whatnot. So employment is the primary solution to poverty alleviation. Not small business, not subsidies, it's employment. So the conclusion is, the easiest first step to get out of poverty is employment. It's the easiest. A person can get employed right off the street. The person is looking for a job. Let's say if a cafe is looking for a waitress, if a certain type of a farmer, business farmer, is looking for a laborer, if a building needs janitors or maintenance staff, they can hire anybody off the street for that. Well, of course, in the Philippines, we have these really idiotic assumptions of what a competent person is, like educational attainment and the like. But of course, we're not looking to multiply the current culture that we have in terms of job applications or job qualifications, we're looking for more competition to reduce the need for unnecessary job qualifications. So we'll get to that in other videos in the future. But today we'll focus on this. Now, there are some other numbers that we need to further understand and accept. We need to see how big these numbers are so that we can feel the urgency of implementing reforms in our country. And this doesn't apply only to constitutional reforms. This also applies to legislative reforms or reforms of our current laws that are in place for us. So once again, we have found earlier that the total population of the Philippines is 117.33 million. And according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, our labor force is 52.3 million large. 52.13 million large. So it's around half or less than half of the number of the total population of the Philippines. So with that number, my dear friends, we can see that the non-working people or the dependents are 65.2 million people. So imagine, the 52.13 million people in the workforce would need to sustain the 65.2 million other people who are not working. If we would just look at this in a layman's perspective, it is a high possibility that the 65.2 million people would not be able to eat in a day without the support of the 52.13 million people in the labor force. Now, of the total number of people in the labor force, 50.52 million people are employed. Now, this doesn't break down which of these people are in the formal sector and informal sector. We'll get to that later. From the same report, we have the number of 1.16 million people who are unemployed. So this is taken from the total number of the labor force. They're not including the number of the non-working or the dependents, simply because these are not the people who have the profile of someone who is going to work. Now, let's go to the statistics of the Department of Trade and Industry. Now, we're going to talk about the formal sector. So first off, we're going to look at the private sector. Okay, so according to the Department of Trade and Industry, the micro, small, medium enterprises and large enterprises have generated a total of 8.61 million jobs. So those are already combined. Now for the government, I do not have a precise number, but a crude number was coming up on Statista, which is a statistical website, and it didn't really cite the source that it got this number from, but it gave me the number of 1.78 million government jobs in the Philippines. So if you combine the number of the private sector and the public sector, the total formal jobs, so that means that formal jobs are those that have employers. The total number is 10,385,200 jobs. Let's factor in the overseas Filipino workers. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, we have a total of 1.96 million OFWs. So if we would just combine that, because our OFWs have employers, the grand total of Filipinos that have formal jobs is only 12,345,200. That means, my friends, that those employed outside of the 12.34 million are in the informal sector. What is the informal sector, guys? The informal sector are those people that are working with crude jobs with no guarantee of a better pay. These people could be our street sweepers. These people could be those that go to the hills and get wood or firewood. These people could be those that, are the bakers that have not been formally employed. These could be tillers of land, laborers. So once again, these people do not have official employers. And it's a huge number, guys. It's 38,174,800 people. Can you just imagine the number? And if we go back to the number of formal jobs or people working in the formal sector, it's only 12,345,200. And remember, the non-working or the dependents are 65,200,000. So from these numbers, we can already see a big picture of why the Philippine economy is struggling. There's just too many dependents and very little workers. And there are workers who are also earning, but there are a huge number of them are not earning enough. They're most likely experiencing hunger right now at this very moment. So, in summary, I've mentioned the total population. I've mentioned the labor force, the total number of formal jobs, the total number of people in the informal sector, and the unemployed. Now, we are looking towards generating high quality paying jobs. So I checked the statistics for this, and these people in the informal sector are in the same bed as the unemployed people. They need better incomes. So therefore, if we would just use layman terms here, the total additional quality jobs needed in the formal sector is 39,334,800 jobs. No combination of Filipino companies can do this. So we've mentioned earlier, the total combined formal jobs from the private sector, the public sector, as well as overseas work is only 12 million, 12.35 million. And the additional jobs needed is a whopping 39.33 million. It's a dismal number. We have to address this, my dear Filipinos. Now, I went to Statista. This is the website I mentioned earlier. And it was found that the median wage per month in the Philippines is 18,423 pesos. This is enough to sustain one person. Perhaps including leisure and some form of insurance. If we factor in the total additional jobs needed because of these people require at least a living wage, the 39,334,800 people, these are the people that need at least 18,423 pesos. So if we comply with the communist solution of subsidizing all of these people using a living wage, not the minimum wage, but the living wage, the government will have to come up with a staggering number. That is 718 billion and 497 million every month. As I've mentioned in the slide, we're talking about the median wage per month for a Filipino person to live in a non-poverty status, in a non-hardship status. And I don't even think this is the right number, guys. So how in the world are we ever going to come up with 718 billion pesos a month? We cannot. We cannot do that. Now, let's go to the private sector, since the public sector has only generated, what, 1 million or so jobs, 1.78 million jobs. I don't think that's ever enough to cover all of the job applicants in the entire country. So if you look at the private sector, which is the hope of the Philippines for job generation, we need to look at the kind of investors that we need to attract to the Philippines. So these are statistics from the Department of Trade and Industry. And the enterprises or the businesses are classified as so. Micro enterprise, they have less than 10 employees. Small enterprises, they have 99 employees or less. Medium enterprises, they have 199 employees and less. We have the large enterprises, they have 200 or more employees. Now, over time, even with the restrictions of the 1987 Constitution, private enterprise or private businesses still operate in the Philippines. So there are a total number of 1.11 million private enterprises registered with the DTI. The total number of jobs generated by all of these businesses is only the number that I've shown earlier, 8.61 million jobs. However, if we look at the breakdown between the micro, small, medium, and large enterprises, it has been found that even with the largest number, the micro businesses did not generate a huge number of jobs. Because I do remember communists telling us that no, we should not allow large enterprises to proliferate in the Philippines. We should give government subsidies to micro and small businesses. However, this is the reality. One micro business has only generated 2.8 jobs. One small business has only generated 22.6 jobs. However, one medium enterprise has generated a ratio of 135.6 jobs. And the large enterprises have generated 1:662.1 jobs. So it is very clear, my dear Filipinos, that the kind of businesses that we should encourage in the Philippines are medium and large enterprises. Because do you remember what we mentioned in the first part of the presentation? Job creation is the easiest and fastest way out of poverty, or getting employed is the easiest and fastest way out of poverty. And we had that staggering number of over 38 million Filipinos who needed formal jobs. Therefore, we need the kind of businesses that would generate the most number of jobs in the Philippines. And those are the medium and large enterprises, where each enterprise would generate within the hundreds to the thousands of jobs. And that's where our advocacy for foreign direct investments would come in. Because when we are attracting foreign direct investors, we are not attracting a small cafeteria in Europe. We are not attracting a car repair shop in Japan. We are also not attracting a barber shop in Vietnam. However, when we open up to foreign direct investors, we are attracting multinational corporations or MNCs, wherein they would come in, set up their business, and open jobs for a huge number of Filipinos. So we have to accept that reality, my dear Filipinos. So in summary, the Philippines has a high poverty rate. Point number 2, employment is often the only recourse for the poor to get out of poverty. Point number 3, more jobs can be opened by more investors or businesses and not by the government. Point number 4, one large enterprise can generate hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs. So this should convince you, this should convince anybody to support constitutional reforms to welcome more big multinational corporations into the Philippines. As always, correctors, be properly informed, research, and make sure that you know the topic in order to properly explain all of this to our fellow Filipinos.